Richard Callaway ran the Middle East division of one of the world's largest engineering firms. In October 2018, his phone started ringing. Every call was the same. Pull us out of NEOM. Within 72 hours of the news breaking, his firm's board ordered a complete review of all Saudi contracts. Within 30 days, they had withdrawn from 3 active NEOM bids. And they were not alone. The murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi inside the Saudi consulate in Istanbul did not just end a life. It ended NEOM's ability to attract the Western partnerships it desperately needed. And here is what the Saudi government will never publicly admit. The reputational damage from that single event has cost NEOM more than any engineering failure or budget crisis combined. In this video, I will expose how the Khashoggi assassination turned NEOM into a toxic brand that no Western firm will publicly endorse. I will reveal the internal risk assessments that killed billion-dollar partnerships, and I will show you why the murder of one journalist may have doomed the most expensive construction project in history. Less than 48 hours ago, corporate governance consultants confirmed what boardrooms across London, New York, and Zurich have known for years. NEOM remains on the reputational blacklist. The ESG screening criteria that now govern institutional investment decisions automatically flag any project with direct ties to the Saudi Crown Prince. The screening is automated, no human decision required. The algorithms reject NEOM before an analyst even opens the file. On October 2, 2018, Jamal Khashoggi walked into the Saudi consulate in Istanbul to obtain documents for his upcoming marriage. He never walked out. Turkish intelligence confirmed what the world feared. Khashoggi had been killed inside the consulate by a Saudi government team. The details that emerged were horrifying, and they were broadcast to every boardroom on Earth. United States intelligence agencies later concluded with high confidence that Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman had personally approved the operation. The same Crown Prince whose signature project is NEOM. The connection is direct and permanent. The connection is the problem. NEOM is not a government infrastructure project managed by a ministry. It is the personal flagship of Mohammed bin Salman. His name, his vision, his authority. For any Western corporation considering a NEOM partnership, the risk calculation changed permanently on that October day. One senior partner at a global management consulting firm who advises Fortune 500 companies on Middle East investments described the dynamic. Before Khashoggi, we had 6 active proposals for NEOM advisory work. The morning after the news broke, our general counsel walked into my office and said every single one was dead. Not paused, not under review. Dead. Our board determined that any association with a project controlled by someone implicated in the murder of a journalist was an unacceptable reputational liability. No fee justifies that exposure. The withdrawals were not limited to consultants. The impact cascaded through every sector that NEOM needed. Architecture firms that had competed for landmark NEOM design contracts quietly withdrew their proposals. Engineering companies restructured their Middle East operations to create distance from the project. The annual Future Investment Initiative Conference in Riyadh, branded as Davos in the desert, became ground zero for the boycott. In 2018, weeks after the murder, dozens of high-profile executives canceled their attendance. JP Morgan CEO withdrew, Uber's CEO pulled out. Bloomberg, CNN, and the Financial Times boycotted entirely. JP Morgan, Uber, Bloomberg, CNN, the Financial Times. One by one, the biggest names in global business walked away from Saudi Arabia. The conference eventually resumed in subsequent years, but the firms that returned did so quietly, without press announcements, without logos, with strict instructions to communications teams to avoid any association being publicized. The corporate risk framework that killed NEOM partnerships has a specific name: ESG, environmental, social, and governance criteria. Over the past decade, ESG compliance has shifted from voluntary aspiration to mandatory requirement For publicly traded companies and institutional investors, pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, university endowments, and insurance companies now screen every investment through ESG filters. Human rights violations trigger automatic exclusion, no meeting required, no appeal process. The algorithm decides. The Khashoggi assassination sits at the intersection of every ESG red flag: extrajudicial killing, state-sponsored violence, freedom of press violations, rule of law concerns. One ESG compliance director at a major European investment bank explained what this means in practice. Our screening model has 3 tiers: green for proceed, amber for enhanced due diligence, red for exclusion. Saudi Arabia has been red flagged since 2018. Specifically, because of the Khashoggi case, any fund manager who allocates capital to a NEOM-linked project must personally sign a waiver acknowledging the reputational risk. Most refuse. The personal liability is too high. If the investment becomes controversial, your career is over. The timeline of reputational damage shows how the Khashoggi effect compounded over years, rather than fading. In the immediate aftermath, 2018 through 2019, the response was overt: public withdrawals, canceled conferences, media boycotts. The world was watching. By 2020 and 2021, the damage went underground. Companies stopped making public statements about Saudi Arabia, but quietly removed NEOM from their strategic planning. Internal risk assessments at major firms permanently categorized NEOM as elevated risk, not because of construction challenges, because of who controls it. By 2022 through 2024, the Khashoggi effect merged with broader human rights concerns. Reports of worker deaths at NEOM, the Hawatat tribe displacement, the execution of Abdul Rahim al-Huwaiti. Each new report reinforced the original risk assessment. Saudi Arabia was not becoming safer for Western brands. It was becoming more dangerous. Year after year, the evidence compounded. By 2025, the reputational blacklist had become structural. An entire generation of corporate leaders has been trained to view NEOM as career poison. Several converging factors explain why the reputational damage has proven permanent rather than fading. First, Saudi Arabia never held anyone meaningfully accountable. The trial of minor operatives was widely dismissed as a cover-up. No senior official faced consequences. Second, the victim was a journalist. Press freedom organizations worldwide adopted Khashoggi as a symbol. Every anniversary generates renewed media coverage that refreshes the association. Third, ESG frameworks are designed to be sticky. Once a country or entity is red flagged, removal requires demonstrated systemic change. Saudi Arabia has not demonstrated that change. Fourth, competing destinations offer lower risk. The UAE, Qatar, Oman, and Bahrain provide Gulf market access without the Khashoggi association. Western firms have alternatives. Finally, social media ensures permanent memory. The Khashoggi case is instantly retrievable. Any company announcing a NEOM partnership faces immediate public backlash documented in real time. The evidence of NEOM's reputational isolation is visible across every platform. LinkedIn job postings for NEOM-related positions consistently underperform equivalent Gulf roles. Western professionals report being advised by mentors and recruiters to avoid NEOM on their resumes. The brand is toxic on a CV. University endowments in the United States and Europe have specifically excluded Saudi-linked investments following student-led divestment campaigns, citing the Khashoggi case. Financial industry conferences routinely feature panels on Saudi reputational risk. The consensus among governance experts has not shifted since 2018. Saudi Arabia has spent billions on reputation rehabilitation, sports investments, entertainment partnerships, lobbying firms in Washington and London. The strategy is called sports washing, but the institutional investment community operates on risk models, not public relations. and the risk models still flag Saudi Arabia in red. Saudi Arabia has pushed back aggressively against the reputational framing. Official statements describe the kingdom's reform agenda as evidence of transformation. A kingdom in transformation, that is government speak for please. Forget what happened and focus on what we are spending. The consequences for NEOM are concrete and measurable. Without Western engineering expertise, NEOM has been forced to rely on firms from countries with less rigorous ESG requirements. Chinese, Turkish, and South Korean contractors have filled some gaps, but these firms often lack the specialized mega-project experience that Western leaders would have provided. The expertise deficit shows in the engineering failures, the trench collapses, the timeline delays, the budget overruns. The talent that could have prevented these failures chose Dubai or Singapore or Abu Dhabi instead. Every engineer who said no to NEOM because of Khashoggi is a problem that will never appear on a budget spreadsheet. The technology partnerships that NEOM needs for its smart city ambitions have been equally affected. Silicon Valley firms face intense scrutiny from employees and shareholders over any Saudi engagement. One technology executive at a major Silicon Valley firm described the internal dynamics. Our engineers organized a petition within 48 hours of the Khashoggi reports. Over 2,000 signatures demanding the company withdraw from all Saudi government contracts. Management initially pushed back. The contracts were worth hundreds of millions, but when the petition leaked to the press, the board reversed course within a week. We have not bid on a Saudi government project since. What does NEOM's leadership know about the reputational damage that they are not saying? Internal assessments almost certainly quantify the partnership deficit. Finding solutions requires acknowledging an uncomfortable truth. Reputation is the one resource that money cannot buy back quickly. Saudi Arabia has tried. The spending is staggering. Billions spent on Newcastle United, on Formula One, on professional golf, on Hollywood productions, on Washington lobbying firms billing millions. Per month, the spending is enormous. The SG needle has not moved, but institutional memory in the corporate governance world is measured in decades, not news cycles. The Khashoggi case will remain in ESG screening databases for a generation. To be fair, some Western firms have maintained quiet involvement with Saudi Arabia. Economic incentives are powerful, and not every company prioritizes ESG compliance equally. But the companies that remain do so without press releases, without logos on NEOM promotional materials, without the public endorsement that NEOM needs to attract broader investment. Silent partners do not build credibility. NEOM needs global brands standing beside it publicly. That is precisely what the Khashoggi legacy prevents. Saudi Arabia's leadership sold the world a global city built by the world's best firms, a collaboration between the kingdom and the international community, a shared vision. Instead, NEOM is being built in isolation. The world's best firms will not put their names on it. The engineers who could solve its problems will not relocate there. The investors who could fund its completion will not sign the check. All because of what happened inside a consulate in Istanbul on an October afternoon. You were told the world would build this city together. Instead, the world walked away, and the desert remains empty. Your perspective matters more than any partnership announcement. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe if you want the truth about what is really happening at NEOM. And this is just the reputation crisis. Wait until you see what happened when the engineers who remained tried to solve the line's structural impossibility.